Okay, hello. Oh, I didn't check my audio. Let's make sure that's working. Looks like it should be. If you're not hearing me, put the comment in the chat. Hello, everyone. It's great to see people joining us here. Welcome to the Essential GExperts webinar. So if you're not familiar with GDK software, this is Jim McKeeth. I'm the director of GDK Software USA. GDK Software is a Delphi consulting company. We specialize in Delphi. We have a great team of Delphi developers, 25 plus experts across our 4 offices: US, Brazil, Netherlands, and the UK. All right, great that you can hear me. Thomas? Oh, Thomas is on. Yay. So if you're in need of any Delphi expertise or additional capacity, do check us out at gdksoftware.com. Also, we offer Codelex, which is our low-code solution. And I like to say it's more than low-code because it really is quite an impressive package. And you can find out more about that at codelex.com. It is now completely free as well. Real quick webinar logistics. And I'm not sure what happened to the slide there, but it looks a little weird at the bottom. If you didn't already, make sure you register at mailing.gdksoftware.com/webinars. That's where we send out emails about future webinars and provide links for slides and such. So do register there. Once you register, we will usually point people towards YouTube for the best viewing experience, but we also are on LinkedIn, etc. If you're watching live, there is a Q&A at the end. You can put your questions in the question panel, and I'll do my best to get them answered for you. And if you have suggestions for future webinars, you can send me an email at jim@gdksoftware.com. So let's get started. Today we're talking about GExperts, which is a great Delphi add-on, and got a lot of great content for you here. So this is kind of, I wanted to do a special thanks shout out. Everyone that completed the Essential Delphi add-on survey, thank you for that. That's where the GExperts was ranked as the #1 Delphi add-on. And also thanks to Thomas Mueller, who I see is online here. He's the current GExperts maintainer. And I think Eric Berry was before he was, and then there was a few other people that started it. So it's great to see him carrying it on and moving it forward and doing quite a bit with it. So thank you, Thomas, for that. Also, the following people, John, Akim, and David, all sent in their most essential features of GExperts to include in this as well. So thanks to them. And David has a blog post, a couple of blog posts there. GExperts Most Awesome Delphi Companion is his most recent one, where he goes into his favorite features of GExperts, most essential features in detail, and another one on using GExperts for live templates. And he has a book on fearless cross-platform development. So take a look at his book. There is the links there on the screen. So let's dive in. As I mentioned, GExperts was rated as the #1. So it was by 39% of the people that responded to the survey rated it in their top 4, which is, I would consider, most essential. And it was also, it had the most votes for in the top 4 and the most votes for #1. So definitely most essential. You can, if you didn't get a chance to complete the survey, you can still complete it. And maybe I'll update the details in the future. But so far, nothing's moved around significantly. But that was back from May when I ran the survey. And so you can see that chart there. I'm not sure which direction I'm pointing, but the GExperts is #1 way up at the top, and then it drops off quite a bit. So the rest of them, people were using them, but the ones that GExperts was, like I said, the one that consistently was used the most by the most people. So GExperts, if you're not familiar with, it's a collection of experts. It's I think at one point it was like there were some other experts around that it kind of that weren't being maintained or were smaller and kind of a pain, and so they were kind of consumed into GExperts. And it also included some basic stuff as far as like building your own experts. And so it's really a collection of experts. There's two categories of experts. Well, I would say probably three. There's the experts, the regular experts that you can activate and have a dialogue, and then there's the editor experts, which usually you want to tie those to a hotkey, and they can provide you with a lot of great features within the editor. And then there are some other things that just change the IDE and the way things work. Source is all available. It's open source and free, and it still supports all the way back to Delphi 6, I believe. So that's pretty cool. And honestly, it adds, sometimes you see these things and new features get added to Delphi over the years, and they kind of lose some of their appeal because the features are now part of Delphi. But that's not the case with GExperts. There's still a lot of experts in here that are not part of Delphi, and if you're not taking advantage of it, you're really kind of missing out because there's some pretty great stuff in here. And I used GExperts a long time ago, but then I had stopped using it for a while, and I'm back to using it again. And a lot of things like, oh, I forgot about this feature. This is great. And then there were a number of features that I had never used, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was missing out. These are amazing. It really will change your development experience. Oh, so David says he has an old version of GExperts installed in Delphi 5. Thanks for joining, David. Okay, cool. So yeah, there is old versions available as well. So, but the current build that Thomas is putting out is supports all the way back to Delphi 6, I believe. So apparently, yeah, you can get the older versions installed on older versions of Delphi as well. Oops. So for installing GExperts, the latest version, first of all, GExperts.org is outdated. It does have a couple of places in it that says, hey, go to Thomas's website there, which is experts.dummzeuch.de for the latest version of GExpert. And it calls it experimental, which at first I'm like, I don't want the experimental one, but the experimental one is where everything's going on now for GExperts. So that's where you want to go, is to Thomas's page there. You can see the homepage for it. And he just made a brand new version of GExperts for this webinar. So you can grab it there at that blog post link. And then also there's the links for where you can find the source code and the online forum where Thomas hangs out and answers questions about GExperts, as well as a number of other people. So yeah, that's where you get it. It's got a wizard, or a installation wizard. The one thing I will point out, and I do have a video I'll show you in a second, it does Windows Smart Screen and UAC will pop up saying, hey, this is unsigned. Are you sure you want to install it? If that doesn't work for you, download it and install from source. So here are the configuration screen. I thought this was a good way kind of just to show the amount of experts in GExperts. This is the experts tab, the first tab, and you can see there are a lot of experts in here. Each of these you can assign a hotkey to, or most of these you can assign a hotkey to. And many of them also have a configuration dialog you can bring up to configure the individual experts. And then we have the editor experts, which these are more like specific to working in the code editor, where you're probably going to want to assign a hotkey to these to navigate around or do things like that. And again, yeah, each one of these you can assign a hotkey to, and you can configure it. Also in here, you have the configuration, and you have the IDE option where you can go in and reconfigure the IDE, make some changes to the IDE, which is really useful. I really like the automatically close the messages window down at the bottom on successful compile, because it's always popping up and annoying me, and so now it's great that it can just go away automatically. So that's great. But in my opinion, if it's got hidden warnings, leave it on there, because you need to address those. That's a pet peeve of mine. So often people say, "Hey, I'm having some problems," and I come look at their code, and they got pages and pages of hints and warnings. I'm like, "Hey, let's look at these," and I'm like, "We just ignore those." And every single time that happens, one of those hints and warnings is telling me exactly what is causing their problem. So, not all hints and warnings true are mean something's wrong, but if you need to pay attention to them, if it's a hint and warning that is not particularly applying, then turn it off for that one section. Otherwise, it needs to be addressed. So these were the most essential features that were suggested by the people that I polled. And I want to list them out here, and then I'm going to go through most of these and show them off. The components to code one is one I used to use a lot. Set tab order. That's an awesome one. A lot of great ones here. I didn't do a demo of the synchronized configuration. And that is, I think, one of the hidden gems of GExperts is that when you get your configuration set up, you can synchronize it between multiple installations or other members of your team. And so that's a really big deal, especially when you do things like code formatter and stuff like that, because then you can have everybody on the team using the same code formatting, which makes it much easier to work with the code if it's all consistently formatted. So this synchronized configuration is a really big, really important feature because I didn't really dive into that one that much in the demos, but definitely want to call that one out. A code proofreader is one I'd never used before, and wow, that is cool. That is really, really cool. I really like that one. And then here's some more essential features here as well. It has a number of grep search features in there, which I didn't demo either, but those are a great way to just to go through your code and find things and look for things in your project and outside your project. And with that, I'm going to show you some demos here. Installation is pretty easy, but I just wanted to call a couple things out here. Make sure you're grabbing the latest version for the correct version of Delphi you're using. When you go to install it, you'll get the Windows Smart Screen message because it's unsigned. If you're concerned about that, you can download the code and install it or build it from code, sign it yourself. And then after you've installed it, go into the IDE on the new GExperts menu item. Down at the bottom, there's an About dialog. And you'll want to go into the configuration down here, take a look at all the different experts and editor experts that are available to you, and change configuration for each, assign hotkeys. There's actually quite a bit of cool configuration here that can just change the behavior of the IDE. Like, I really like the automatically close message window after successful compile, because I don't need that taking up space when I'm done. And you can get lots of information in a quite detailed help file, which is really nice to see. Even though we live in a Unicode world, sometimes you need an ASCII chart, and there's one built into GExperts. Come in here, you can configure the font, you can view high ASCII or low ASCII, and you can see it in hex per decimal. And click what you want, and it adds it to your little clip box there, so you can copy it to your clipboard using your program. This is one of those ones I just keep memorized, those two. While Windows added a clipboard history to the OS, there's some advantages to the one built into GExperts as well. For one, it persists between IDE sessions, and it's only stuff that was in your clipboard while you're using the IDE. So it's less likely to get cluttered with other bits of fluff that may have gotten from the rest of your computer. It also has a feature to paste as a Pascal string or paste regularly into the IDE. And that can be useful if you want to encode something as a Pascal string There's a few options here in settings. You can turn it on to start clipboard to capture at startup automatically, which it's not on by default, and creates a nice little history of the clipboard while you're using the IDE. The GExperts code formatter is considerably more configurable than the one that is built into Delphi. You have lots of options here for how you want things spaced. It's bigger here so you can see it. Indentation, spacing, if you want, how you want things spaced as far as other identifiers. Line breaks, you can put between everything in the uses clause, before the comma, and we can also put capitalization in here. So let's say reserved words to be all uppercase, standard direct full uppercase. And this is really nice here, identifiers. You can say use first occurrence. So whenever you first use an identifier, we'll make sure that you're consistently using the same capitalization, which really makes your code, I think, look a lot more professional. There's also user-defined capitalization lists you can define. You can set up alignment on var statements, const statements, or comments, and source directives to prevent formatting if you don't want formatting in certain places. You can reset it to a few defaults as well as export your own configuration that you want to use again in the future. I have it set up to Control-Alt-F. There we go. First time it gives you this dialog, but you can tell it not to do that. And now I can export this configuration and everybody's code will look just as beautiful as mine. Code Proofreader is a tool I've not used before and thinking I really missed out on. It auto-corrects your code as you type, and it also has support for templates. You need to come in here and configure it to enable it. First time you run it, you're going to get this message to create the configuration data. It will beep when you run it, but it comes with a different beep file here. And you want to enable autocorrect. And so this is going to replace this text with this text. And you can define rules for it. And you see the pipe here is for template expansion. And then it has a dictionary of other words it will replace. You can enable dictionary replacement. And then also compiler assisted replacement, where it will replace based on feedback from the compiler. And it keeps a history of what you've done. It supports multiple languages here. So if you're working with other languages, and I guess with strings, you can like define words that you're always spelling wrong in your string list or in your string literals. Let's go ahead and enable this. And now if I type, it fixes that for me. Really useful to eliminate typos in your code and really just going to make you more productive. Code librarian gives you a bucket to store some code snippets that wouldn't otherwise make sense to go in a general purpose library. You can just assign a hotkey to it and double click to paste. If you want to make a new one, just this is my code. Just like that. You can change the location where it stores it, change the layout, and change the fonts. It stores it in a proprietary format, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but you have the source code, so I'm sure you can figure it out. Components to code is a feature I've used a lot in the past. Sometimes you don't want your components at design time, you want them at runtime. Or maybe you want to have the ability to design them using the design service, but then instantiate them at runtime. So you can select all your components that you want to do this with, right-click, say Components to Code. You come here to GExperts and select Components to Code. And if you want to have a hotkey, you can come into the configuration. Right now I don't have a hotkey assigned, but I can assign one. It's also a good idea to come in here the first time and take a look at the configuration options. Made my font big, so I gotta make this a little bigger here. First thing is for binary properties. By default, it comments it out and puts a little please assign on there. You can say just skip the binary properties, or if you want to force yourself to remember, just say generate uncommented code. And then you can prepend the original DFM text version in here, which puts that up at the top. And you can also use the Delphi with statement, which is a great way to get yourself in trouble. And you can have it, instead of using self as the owner, you can have it create a free down here at the bottom. And it even supports C++. So let me go ahead and do the free version here with the commented code. And didn't assign a hotkey, so I'm going to say components to code. It gives you this little dialog the first time, letting you know what you've done. I'm going to delete all those and come in here and double click in there. Now you notice it says, whoa, hold on, we've got some errors. These things don't exist. So let's go ahead and put this guy down here. I'm going to move this. It all works. The events handlers and everything were maintained because they were set in the properties that were then copied into the code. One thing is that if you have default properties in here, which a lot of these are default, it doesn't filter that out. It just leaves those as assigned. So you could go and clean this up if you wanted to. If you don't want to explicitly specify all of these properties. Show you a few editor experts. Now you can find a list of them here, but you're better off memorizing the hotkeys, which you can find and change under the configuration here. First one I want to show you, this one's great, especially if you've copied a line between two places. You can reverse a statement. That is Shift-Alt-R. You can insert a date time, Control-Alt-A, and you can align some code by token. Control-Alt-Z asks you what token you want to use. I'll say it equals, and there we go. It's aligned all those lines by token. Especially when I have a lot of math, I always love having those lines aligned, and it's cool that it works across. Even if the lines are broken up like that. Probably part of the most useful things in GExperts is the keyboard shortcuts that are for the IDE, or the editor experts. So coming in here and learning and configuring these and using them is really powerful. So for example, you can jump between identifiers, so between class and end here. I can also go between the parentheses. So for example, if you had a lot of parentheses nested, that would be really, really useful. And you can select it as well by using the Control-Alt-Left. So Control-Alt-Left is select, Control-Alt-Right is jump. And if you want to find instances of identifier, Control-Alt up and down moves you through all the instances of that identifier. If you want to customize a menu IDE shortcut outside of GExperts, you can do that with the IDE menu shortcut. So they want to really zoom in on our QA metrics. There we go. It tells me that I had that one already assigned. Let's come back to view or project. QA metrics. There we go. And bring up my QA metrics window anytime I want to. When you're building message dialogues, it's not always easy to remember all the options. So luckily there's a wizard or a message dialog that makes it easy to do. Just go GExperts, message dialog. You can also assign a key to it. And we'll say, set the buttons you want to use. And set if you want to use message dialog or message box. You can also set it up with a if statement and such. Save it for default, save it as your default, and test it to see how it works. Doesn't make any sense to say ignore or cancel The only thing you can say is, there we go. I love GExperts all and yes to all. Let's put the yes there. There we go. So then when we're all done, we hit OK, and it puts it into your code for you. Sometimes you need to back up your source code to share with somebody else. Although this is not a replacement for version control system. I just want to make that clear right now. Right here, backup project, under configuration. You can set some options here. I did change this to not include directory names. And then this will automatically look for resources and include files in your library path. And you can tell it to automatically save to a directory or prompt for a file name. Backup, there is an option here. This doesn't persist it, but does let you tweak it if you're like, oh, I usually do this, I don't want to change it. And there we go, it saved it. And if you open up the backup, you'll see it's not putting the paths in there like I asked for. And it did go find this include file because I told it to do that. The project dependencies gives you the ability to see on a unit by unit basis what units it uses, what units use that unit, and then indirect dependencies. So we see here that the sample form controls uses sample form base, which uses fmax dialogues, or sample form controls also uses sample form controls, TSKM in an image. There is an option to save this to a CSV file as well as a text file. And you can filter out units that you don't want to see anymore. It's great that Delphi automatically gives the components names so they can all have a unique name, but rarely is that useful. Plus, why does it put panel, the name, in the caption? I don't want my panels to have a caption. So luckily, GExperts makes this way better for you with the rename components. Coming here to settings, and you can actually reset to the default, and it comes in here with a whole bunch of default naming. And you'll notice that the panel gets renamed to PNL, and it has no caption. Oh my goodness. You can have it automatically show the rename dialog for new components. So that way, if you want to manually specify names for each one, you can do that. And you can have it automatically add rules for new components when you put them in so that it will create consistent naming. You can read about the rules for the patterns for naming in the help. Now, I'm going to add a new caption in here, or a new panel, that doesn't have a caption. Oh my goodness, isn't that amazing? And you'll notice the panel has a name of PNL1 because that was the pattern we told it to use. Replace components is something I've done manually in the past, but honestly, the GExperts expert makes this so much easier. Just right-click on the component we want to replace, come in here and select Replace Component. You can also get to it from a hotkey or the menu. And you say, I want to replace T button with T bit button. I want to ignore errors and log changes. And you can specify if it's current form, all forms, or just the selected one. In the settings here, there is some mappings you can set up so that if you're like some sort of component you're wanting to replace doesn't quite map up right. So for example, here the tedit.text goes into tmemo.lines. Kind of makes sense, but because lines in memos or lines in text are two different property names, it doesn't get mapped by default. So let's go ahead and say OK. And there we go. I replaced it with a T-bit button already that quickly. And it's done. And then I can go back, which would be more complicated because the T-bit button has more features that the T-bit button, or more properties that the T-bit button didn't. There we go. Replace components. Big time saver. This is something that drives me bonkers, and I've done before by accident, but have some controls, maybe just put a new one down or whatever, and the tab order is just all over the place. Very frustrating. I see it, especially in web applications. Oh, it drives me bonkers. You could go in and set these manually, going down to each control and finding the tab order, counting out what it should be, and changing it, right? But that's kind of tedious to go through and do all those. But luckily, GExperts set tab order, and you can use a order by position here. So I'm going to say go horizontally. And then the great thing is that you can actually come in and say, oh, actually, that needs to be there, and then this one, and then this one, and go through and control this and tweak it. So the order by position gets you like 90% of the way there. Sometimes it works perfectly, but then this is a much easier interface for how to the tab order just set perfectly. There you go. The settings does let you set if the default is horizontal first then vertical or vertical first then horizontal. Let's go ahead and set for that. And run our application with the correct tab order. And oh my goodness, all is right with the world because our tabs are now in order. You're in the zone and you're writing code and you need to remember to do something. That's where the to-do list comes in. All you do is add a comment with this format and GExperts adds it to your to-do list. You can configure what tokens you use here and assign the tokens different priority. Now you will notice that the this token here is compatible with the Delphi to-do list. And you can also have a to-do file here that is a project across the entire project and not specific to a line of code. And both those work in both as well. That's the GExperts to-do list. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to just show some of these off. We really just barely scratched the surface as far as what the experts are available in here. If we go back to the, you can see, here's all the experts and all the editor experts. And I just showed what, like 4 editor experts and about a half dozen of the other experts. So really, I just scratched the surface. Chances are there's somebody watching this that loves GExperts and has a absolutely essential feature, essential expert that I missed. So if that's the case, go ahead and put it down in the comments. I did want to just touch on building it from source. You can grab it from SourceForge, which I used to be a huge SourceForge fan, but kind of just forgot it existed. And I was like looking for GExpert source, and I'm like, oh, I found SourceForge. What? But it's still just SourceForge is still around, still up and working, and still a hosted Subversion, which I know some people are big fans of Subversion versus Git. So it's great that that's still available. So download it from Subversion, make sure there's no spaces in your path, and then there's a build script you can run, or you can open it, open the project for your specific version of Delphi in the IDE and build from there. And Thomas has the instructions on his website. All right, so that's it. If, like I said, if I do have some questions, we'll get to those. But you can download the latest version as of today on the right there at the link you see, the 2024-08-24 version. There are other links for the homepage for GExperts, a place to report bugs and make feature requests on SourceForge, and you can find support in the forums there as well on Delphi Praxis. So with that, let's go to Q&A. Let's see. There were some questions that came in here. First of all, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Thomas, for maintaining GExperts. It is a lot of work. It is one of those things that usually all you hear from people is asking for features or complaining about bugs, but so we know it's hard work and we do appreciate you doing that. Thomas pointed out that as I did mention the help file, but he said unfortunately the help file is ancient. It's CHM format, which I believe Microsoft retired the tools, which makes it kind of hard to maintain that. But yeah, that's unfortunately the case. There was a question though from came in. It says, I currently use CNPAC. Does GExperts conflict with CNPAC? Thomas said that he also uses CNPAC, but only a few of the experts from it, and there's no conflicts he's aware of. It seems like in the past I had tried installing both of them, and there were some hotkeys that I expected to be assigned to one that were assigned to the other. So if you go in and tweak the hotkeys, which you could totally do because they're both very configurable, then you can resolve any conflicts you might have in that capacity. Oh, and the the dialogue where I was showing I love GExperts shouldn't have been an error. It should have been information. But anyway, so yeah, that's it for just today's GExpert. I do hope you learned some new things about GExperts, and hopefully we'll be able to make use of that in your productivity. Lots of great stuff out there, and well, let's see. David just commented here. One of my new favorites in GExperts is the configuration ID enhanced build events dialog with favorites. Oh yes, I didn't show that one. Yeah, so if you're doing build events, you can have favorite build events. That's part of the IDE configuration screen where you can reconfigure the IDE. So yeah, there's a number of things in there that really just kind of improves, I think, like the way you're using Delphi. It's like you expect these things to be there and they're not, and then GExperts fixes a lot of those. Hello, Olaf. Great, thanks. Oh, and Ivan joined. Hey, Ivan. Good to see you. Yeah, so that's it for GExperts. Let's see. So discovered a few things I was missing. Cool. Like I said, we just really scratched the surface. You can, even though the help file is outdated, you can go through that and gives you a little information about each of the experts, or go to the configuration screen and you can see them all there. GExperts, one of the things about GExperts that I kind of like and kind of also is a bit, I guess, a bit frustrating, is that when you install it, most of the stuff doesn't change your IDE. By default, when you install it, it doesn't really just radically reconfigure your IDE. It doesn't, a lot of the stuff is not even enabled by default. So you have to go in and configure it and say, ooh, that's useful, and turn it on and make use of it. Otherwise, it's not going to have as big an impact on you. So just installing it's not going to make a big difference. You have to install it, configure it, and discover those features that you want to use. You're welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining. And with that, I hope you've gone out. Let's see. I'll throw up the QR code. If you go to the QR code and register, hopefully I can point in the right direction for the mailing list there, then you'll get emails about future webinars in the series, and you can, I'll put the link down at the bottom here. That one's always easy to do. Mailing.gdksoftware.com/webinars, where you can register for future webinars in the series. And then we will also send out slides, replay links, and such on that as well. So this is a smaller mailing list that's just specifically about webinars that we have set up. So it's not going to be, not that we send a ton of emails anyway, but it is specifically about the webinars. So if you want to get webinars, being the loop for that, that's where to go. Oh, fantastic, David. You know, I'm sure Thomas probably knows everything there is to know about GExperts, but it's one of those things that's big enough that it's really easy to think you know how things work, to think you are an expert on GExperts, and discover there's things you haven't touched before. Absolutely. My pleasure, Thomas. So I want to point out that I made these individual videos as small videos, and then I can put those up as individual videos, individual demos, so that we can use those with GExperts to show off the different features and how to use them. Um, so Salim asked if there would be a Lazarus version of GExperts, and Thomas said he has no plans for it, but he's more than welcome to. So yeah, it is open source. You probably could. Oh gosh, I don't know how Lazarus works for the experts in the IDE, but a lot of the stuff that's specific to the Pascal code, the Delphi code, would work probably in Lazarus, but then the way it integrates to the IDE would probably be different. So yeah, um, absolutely go out there and take a look at it. Maybe you can figure out how to make it work in Lazarus, or at least parts work in Lazarus. And as I pointed out, it does. There are some parts that do work in C++ Builder, but not all of it does. It is definitely Delphi focused, but it's nice that some of the stuff works in C++ Builder. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and I hope to see you online in the future webinars. I'm going to hope I have some other. If you go to the webpage, I'll put this thing up there again. If you go out there, we do have some future webinars listed up there, planned ones. I'm actually wanting to change up the way we do them a little bit here to make them a little easier to digest and consume. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I do have a lot of great stuff planned. I would like to do a CNPAC webinar too, as well as a few other essential Delphi add-in webinars. So thank you, and take care. I'll see you around. Bye, everybody.